I'm going to kick us off today with a bit of a call to action around the importance of designing cities for children. And then I'm going to ask Gary to talk a little bit about his experience designing cities with and for teens and youth. And then Raj will talk a little bit about what it means to design cities for seniors, quality of life for seniors. Looks like we're running here. So I'm going to start a little bit with just context for myself and what kind of brings me to this conversation. I'm kind of wearing four hats. I am an architect. I am a principal with a firm called HCMA, Architecture and Design. I've had the really good fortune of designing public buildings, so community centers, aquatic centers, libraries, for about 20 years now. And the question that you might have seen in the video, which is now not running, is a question we ask ourselves in our firm, which is, who is this for? It's a pretty simple question, but I think it's really a challenge statement for us to make sure that we're centering people in our designs, and it kind of guides us in terms of understanding that we want to make equitable spaces and places. The other hat I think I wear, which is everybody in this room wears, I think of myself as a city builder. I'm really inspired by cities, how they shape us as much as we shape them. The fourth hat I wear is I'm a business owner. So as a partner at HCMA, I'm part owner of that business, and so I kind of have skin in the game in terms of making the business thrive. But let's say I understand the connection between how important it is for the city to help our firms thrive and for us to contribute in the same way to our cities and how to help them thrive. So another hat I wear is that I have been board of directors for Downtown Vancouver's Business Improvement Association for coming up on 7 years now. So I bring that experience here. And then last but not least, I am a parent. So I have two great children who are almost adults. They're probably close to Mila's age, and they're maybe kind of Gary's expertise now. So that's kind of the perspective that I bring to this conversation. And I want to kind of start off with a bit of a story about what really kind of, I guess, kickstarted some of my more recent thinking about the importance of designing cities for children. And it goes back to about 2023. So in 2023 in Vancouver, we found ourselves post-COVID facing some of the challenges that many cities were facing, kind of a slow return back to the office and lower footfall. It was impacting retail and food and beverage and just overall the kind of vitality and quality of life on the street. And so at Downtown Van, there was this, which I think I said that's the BIA Downtown Van. There was a real focus on how are we going to incentivize bringing people back downtown through beautification, through animation, through programming and events. And at the same time at HCMA, we were also, I think we were doing pretty well with return to office, but we're a collaborative profession, so we really believe in working all together. And at the same time, we had a bit of a baby boom at HCMA, so maybe related to work from home, I'm not sure. But we had 12 of the staff in our Vancouver office, which is about 75 or 80 people, all off on parental leave in 2023. And so, that's something we celebrate. We support people starting families and kind of building roots in the community. But what really hurts us, or what hurt us then, continues to hurt us now, is that when those folks are kind of at the end of their time on parental leave and they're ready to return to their career, they have this real challenge finding access to childcare. And so that, it's stressful for them, it hurts them, and it hurts us as a business, because this cohort, for us anyway, are typically very high-performing staff members. They're mid-career, they're disproportionately women, and then they have this struggle returning to the workforce. So, an observation that's not going to be new for anybody who is from this region, we have a childcare crisis that's really acutely felt in Vancouver. And so at that time, I kind of thought, okay, well, we've got this challenge for me as a business owner of wanting to incentivize people coming back to the office, and we're having this struggle getting people back in. Is there a way to create an opportunity here and say, can we actually really focus on getting more childcare downtown, maybe take advantage of some of the vacant office space that we're seeing, and kind of combine those two things into something that could be a positive? And so in collaboration with Downtown Van, HCMA did a bit of a research, maybe an advocacy piece and a pilot project on asking two questions. Can we really get more childcare downtown, and can we get them into some of the vacant office towers that we're seeing in our city to kind of help with vibrancy? I don't have time to get into it now. The answer is it's really, really hard from a regulatory perspective to make that happen. I think there's way more advocacy that we should be doing, more dialogue around that. But what led me to be here today, I think, in a way, is that through those conversations, I heard a lot of decision makers say, you know what, like, the city's not really a place for children. It's not a desirable place. It's not a safe space. And I thought, well, you know, what does it say about us as a society if we don't think that our cities should be a place where children can thrive? So that's kind of my call to action here as part of this conversation. And it really makes me think, and I hope maybe we can talk about this in roundtables tomorrow, like, what would it look like if we designed a city where children can thrive? Like, what might it mean for how we design intersections, for how we think about street trees and green space and benches and play? How can we bring play into the city? And I will just leave with one inspirational example. As fellows, you're probably in Copenhagen, you might have seen this square, but an aspiration for me would be a public square in Copenhagen. It's called Israelsplatz. It was formerly a surface parking lot that got transformed. They put the parking underground. And when I was there recently in the summer visiting, it was, I mean, filled with children, but also had space for me as a kind of coffee-drinking urbanite and folks walking their dogs. And I found out later that it was the shared outdoor space for 2 adjacent elementary schools, also downtown. So that's kind of the hope that I would like to see. I'd like to make cities that are thriving for children. So again, to that question, who is this for? I think that's the question we need to be asking ourselves when we're designing cities. So over to you, Gary.
Thank you. My name is Gary Gaston. I'm the CEO of the Civic Design Center, which is a nonprofit that's based in Nashville, Tennessee. And we're about a 25-year-old organization, and we engage the community to help establish a vision for what we would like the built environment to be in our city. And I started there about 22, 23 years ago, and one of the first exercises that I participated in was the first vision planning process for the city of Nashville. That was a community-based public process. And one of the opportunities that I had to experience in those early days was organizing an engagement session with youth. And what you see here is a photo of me around that time. And that was a group of third graders, Girl Scout troop, but we also did a group of high school students. And we essentially just ran them through a visionary exercise, asking them to design their ideal neighborhood. And the feedback that we got from that program was really that the students took away from it a very empowering experience. And so based on that feedback, we actually, in 2011, we did a intensive summer program that was called Design Your Neighborhood. And it followed a group of 12 high school students through learning about civic design and community engagement and urban design and practice. We also had a film crew follow us around, so we actually created a 52-minute documentary film, and you get to see the students transform during that process. But that then led us to really wanting to be more intentional to saying, how can we open this up to a bigger group of students so it's not just this summer small 12-student cohort, but how can we expose as many students to this design, learning, and thinking process as possible? So I'm really excited that my colleague is here, Melody Gibson, who's actually our Youth Initiatives Director. So she's leading all this work now, but we have in our course, we have in the classroom now this Design Your Neighborhood program working in our middle schools in Nashville. So we have, this is basically a diagram of how that works. We have a curriculum that's taught across multiple different subject matters in STEAM curriculum. And that's in school as a curriculum, so students have all kinds of really amazing projects that engage them with the built environment around the schools. They come up with something called the Paint Challenge project, where they're doing tactical urbanism proposal to help improve the traffic safety around their campuses. They do in the art classes, they come up with a mural that represents their community, and those are actually then displayed on all the bus stops around the city and the schools where they're at. So they get to see their work on display, and there's a real sense of pride and joy in that. And we also have another program called Dashville, which is looking at the design of affordable housing and sustainability. And there's just been a huge positive impact, I think, from seeing the students that have gone through this program. And then now we actually have, if students are really engaged in design and they want to continue and further their explorations of that, we have a high school program called the Nashville Youth Design Team. And that's a year-long internship. This year we have 20 students who are participating in that. It's a paid internship. They meet monthly, and they have an intensive program in the summer. And they're actually really working to engage their peers as well as the middle school students across Nashville and asking them about wellness issues, what's impacting their lives. And they're taking that data and they're mapping it in this really incredible data set. These students have learned GIS, so they're pulling from that the needs that they're hearing from their peers across the city. And then they're actually designing interventions, and they're working with us and our team and the city to implement some of these design concepts. And for instance, one of those was looking at the most dangerous street in the city for pedestrian safety and trying to focus on that to improve the health and safety there. And that actually has led to a real-world project in Nashville where Nashville Department of Transportation has transformed that intersection. So the third phase of our youth work is now the evolution of even the work of the youth design team into being basically a consultation group that can specialize in engaging youth voice and utilizing that in our city projects across Nashville. And we find some of the things that they've really been looking at was this recent study that was done in Nashville that showed that from our data collection process with over 1,000 students, that there is a 78% of our adults in Nashville feel a sense of belonging, and only 60% of our youth do. And so they started to come up with concepts of how can we address this issue of not feeling like they belong. And so they've come up with things like the upsized playground, play spaces, parks that are more geared towards older youth. And some of those things are called they call them third spaces. So it's really been exciting. And then ultimately we're seeing that this is leading our youth participants into career opportunities that they never really thought were possible or were not really engaged with at a younger age. So we're starting to see our students now matriculate and go into college programs in architecture, urban planning, design, engineering. And so it's really at a great point right now. We're 10 years from the pilots through where we are now, and I think we're just continuing to see positive impacts from the youth leadership. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of our work in youth area.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gary. Hi, everyone. My name is Raj Ahuja. I'm a World Cities Fellow focused on connecting healthy aging with community design. And I'd like to advance the conversation, fast forward it about 20 to 30 years right now, and really talk about kind of the impact of population aging on different aspects of society. I've worked in the US and Washington, D.C. primarily with some think tanks and aging organizations, and really looking at how we can develop strategies to help older adults live healthier, more productive, more purposeful lives in their community. And I've been very focused on doing that from a healthcare perspective and health policy perspective, but I'm very interested in kind of connecting a lot of the conversations that we're having around community design, placemaking, city making, urban design, architecture, all of those to, how we can age better in community. And I think, just as we need supportive communities that reflect the unique needs of our youth and children, we certainly want to also develop those same type of supportive communities that reflect the unique needs of older adults in society. And so, as I mentioned, I'm not an urbanist. I'm one of the outsiders here, but I'm hoping to kind of identify some of the challenges and opportunities within the demographic shift that's happening around the world. And for those that have a shared interest in this area, I kind of welcome more engagement on how to connect it to your work. And I think that a lot of the solutions are probably things that we've been talking about today, and so maybe this is an opportunity to look at it from a little bit of a different lens. I think from my perspective, longer lives is one of the biggest achievements of our modern health and public health systems. I think advancements in nutrition and hygiene and vaccines and other public health infrastructures has more than doubled our life expectancy over the past century, from about 35 years to over 70. And the fastest growing age cohort around the world are 80 plus individuals. And centenarians are right behind that. In some areas, they're the fastest growing age cohort in their countries. And I think, longer lives doesn't necessarily mean healthier lives. Age is the biggest risk factor for a number of chronic conditions. We're seeing kind of alarming rates and increase in Alzheimer's disease, cardiovascular disease, certain types of cancers. And I think, with the growing need, our medical systems and healthcare systems certainly can't handle, growing demand for those services. And so I think it's important to start to look at what our environments can do to help prevent and slow the onset of some of those conditions. And the research shows that more and more of our health and longevity are within our control. Genetics really only accounts for about 20 to 25% of our health, which is good news. The rest of it is up to us. It's up to our individual behaviors and lifestyles. And I think our environments can nudge us towards making those better decisions and kind of take out the personal responsibility of having to eat right at every meal and go to the gym every day, which might not be sustainable for all of us, especially me. And so I'm looking to the environment to kind of nudge us in those directions. So I think when we look at the environment, it's not just healthcare access that's creating some of these chronic conditions and detriments to our healthcare. I think it's starting to reveal gaps in housing, in air quality, in green spaces, and kind of all of these external stressors that we have to face on a daily basis. And I think cumulatively, those external stressors are known as the urban exposome and include, everything from, environmental toxins to light to noise to all the chronic stressors, food that we, that accumulate over years and over decades. And, by the time we hit 65, 75, that's when we start to see a lot of, the differences in kind of gaps in life expectancy, which, across urban environments in the U.S. can be pretty significant. In certain areas that have the highest life expectancy, especially in the U.S., you also see, gaps in life expectancy of 20, 30 years, just separated by a couple subway stops in certain cities. And I think that's the difference between, a 60-year life and a 90-year life. And I think some of our environmental design opportunities and some of those types of partnerships can help to, not only help folks increase life expectancy, but kind of narrow that gap also. And so I think there's a great opportunity right now. We're investing billions, trillions of dollars into healthcare and the medical system, which is not tenable. Governments are being shut down over healthcare payments right now, and so I think it's a great time to start to make the case to divert some of those funds and increase investment into our communities, into our environments, into city making, to start to ultimately be that most upstream form of preventive healthcare. So, longer lives are not necessarily the goal that we're after. I think if you ask most people, they'd want to live healthy lives for as long as possible. Unfortunately, the last 10% of our life, they found, is in a state of physical decline and having to deal with a lot of those chronic conditions. And so that's, 7-8 years of decline right at the end of life, increases cost, increases burdens to, caregivers at home. And I think if we're looking at extending life, we certainly don't want to extend that period of decline as well. And so, there's a lot of countries that are coming up right now, Singapore, Japan, Spain, Copenhagen, that are doing, wonderful jobs at increasing that healthy life expectancy, that period of, the period at which we're living at our health without chronic conditions emerging. And they're doing it from all different kinds of perspectives also. Technology, built environment, housing policy, food policy, they're all kind of attacking these from different areas. And so we can kind of start to pull the best practices, from those environments and start to implement them across areas of need. And I think, one of the things when we talk about health, we certainly have to talk about social connections. Loneliness is an epidemic worldwide, and they're starting to find that loneliness is more detrimental to our health than obesity and smoking. And when we were in Copenhagen, it was really interesting talking to all the designers and architects, and especially Gel, who we heard from before, talk about how they're designing with an underlying goal of maintaining eye contact, as people maneuver the city. So as you cross intersections, they want to make sure people are seeing each other. In public spaces, they want to make sure people are seeing each other. And I think that type of foundation around which to design our public spaces, will go a long way to addressing some of the feeling of isolation, and it kind of reflects Copenhagen's desire to create this shared community, which I think goes alongside of longevity and health, and kind of that shared community as goals for longevity societies. So I want to kind of maybe go to my last slide here and just talk about this period of time that we're in right now. I think it's a once in a generation opportunity where we're seeing unprecedented rates of population aging and demographic shifts around the world, meeting a time period right now where we're seeing a city building boom as well. The Economist came out last year talking about how 91 new cities have been announced around the world, 15 in the past decade. And so it's an incredible opportunity to start to place health, longevity at the core of some of the urban innovations and policy-making decisions, because 8 in 10 older adults in the U.S. already live in urban environments. The global population of people over 50 represent $48 trillion of disposable income. It's more than 30% of the global spend. So they're a market that we can start to find competitive advantages for cities that really invest in that, not only financially but also culturally and socially as well. So I'll stop there for now.
Thanks,
Turn
Raj.
back to
Thanks,
you,
Gary.
Melissa. Yeah.
Yeah, we have time for hopefully maybe a couple of questions we can discuss. I think I'm interested in the fact that, and we talked about it a little bit together, about how we almost design for segregation in a way, like we design for very specific populations, and I think the adage is really just if you design for one group and you really think about it, you tend to be more inclusive overall. And I want to start with a quote from the former mayor of Bogota, going back to children, and he said, "Children are a kind of indicator species. If we can build a successful city for children, we'll have a successful city for everyone." And I can see a lot of overlaps in what I think is important for children in a city that would overlap maybe with teens, certainly with seniors, but I'd like to know from both of you, like what might be some examples where you see a clear sort of Venn diagram overlap between what's great for children, what should be great for teens, what should be great for seniors, not necessarily all in the same space, but what are some great examples of spaces you think that really meet, in an urban context, the needs of teens and seniors?
Well, I mean, I think from a perspective of looking at youth, look how youth address the city. I mean, a lot of the aspects are just not to be excluded, which I think is what, they feel like. Maybe we design parks with playgrounds that are a younger demographic, but then that's not designed in a way that's accommodating to an older teen, just in its physical design, but then even like more of the exclusionary, like you're not allowed to be there. Or we've seen transitions in the US where teens aren't allowed to go to malls, and that was the places that we would all go when we were teenagers. So I think just being open to the fact that we're embracing the fact that they're a part of our demographic and our population. Asking an incredibly novel idea, ask them what they'd like to see in projects, and then respond to that.
And then try to do it.
They're extraordinarily innovative and thoughtful in the spaces that they'd like to see happen. So I think that's what we're actively trying to do now with Melody's leadership of our youth work, is get in front of the departments, like the planning department and the transit department and all the entities that are working on these projects, and make sure that they have a process where they can incorporate youth into the surveys that they're doing for the public to try to make the plans for things that are happening for the future.
Yeah, we had that interesting conversation that it's, we are nervous when groups of more than 3, 4, 5 teens gather in one place. Like there's a feeling that something nefarious is happening. So just creating the space and the place that they can be encouraged to do that is a big takeaway for me.
I think as cities, if we don't address that, where that the number of 60%, then we're in danger of either, students that do leave, they go to college, they do not want to come back to their community, so we're losing that talent pipeline. And then also students that stay in the city, they're just really disillusioned. As they grow older, they're probably not going to be engaged, and that could lead to maybe negative interactions or, just not giving them the best opportunity to be successful in life. So I think it's just paramount that we as designers and people at our age are able to make sure that we incorporate this moving forward.
Yeah, quickly before I go to you, Raj, I think similarly with children, I think we risk losing their caregivers, their families, the creative energy, all the things that they bring. If you can't make a life in the city and you can't work downtown and you can't accommodate children in that way, you risk losing all the associated, important components. Yeah. Anyway, Raj, I can think of benches, shade, ramping, all these things that would probably overlap very well between families, children, and seniors. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think underlying that is, we're living in the most age-diverse society that I think we've ever lived in right now. We have 25% of our population in the U.S. under 20, about 23 to 25% over 60. And so there's this kind of age apartheid that's going on right now where we isolate older adults in housing, and we isolate them at work, and we isolate them, in certain types of social environments. And I think there's just a huge opportunity to develop spaces for more intergenerational connections. We were talking yesterday, there's just the isolation that goes on between the different age groups from a younger perspective just creates a fear of aging. It becomes a fear of getting older. And it results in policies. During COVID, the first thing that was shut down was access to nursing homes. And I think it really comes from not having those spaces where interactions can happen on a daily basis. We used to have that more with grandparents living in the house. We don't have that as much right now, but there's very interesting innovations coming up in terms of how to facilitate that. They're starting to come up with university-based retirement communities. Arizona State University has one of these retirement communities on their campus. I was talking to a few other people. It looks like another dorm on campus, right? But it's a senior living facility, and it kind of follows this framework of creating an area for proximity, shared purpose, and participation. So they have a musician in residence program. The people living in these nursing facilities are symphony trained musicians in a lot of cases, and so they can work with music students and things like that. And it just kind of creates not only health outcomes, but better kind of participation in decision making with your life and things like that. So I think there's a lot of examples that are starting to touch on creating more intergenerational connections.
Yeah, that's great. I'm feeling the pressure of being in the red up here. So thank you very much for hosting us. I think we'd all like to talk to you more about designing inclusive cities. So maybe we can connect on the break. Thank you.
Thank you.